wasn't preparing my team to actually be able to handle things. It's like
Okay.
I thought it was my team's gaps, but it was my gaps not being able to. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Lab. I'm Henry Kirk.
And I'm Jonathan Aronson. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Good morning. Before we get going, if you haven't done so, please hit the like button, subscribe, the bell button, and all that great stuff so you can continue to get the latest episodes from the Leadership Lab every week, every Friday morning to be exact. All right, Jonathan, you want to kick us off today?
Yeah, thanks, Henry. So I thought today we'd use our time to talk about teams. And what are teams? How do they work? And how does a leader develop a team? More to the point. A lot of the people in leadership who come into here, that's what they're doing. They have a group of people, and it can be a group of people, I guess, could be anywhere from one, but really, as the team grows and gets bigger and you have a bunch of people, there's a lot of dynamics that comes into play. So what we thought we'd do is kind of talk to you today about how to help a team evolve and what's needed from you as a leader. What do you think, Henry?
No, that's great. What do you think listeners are going to get out of this today?
Well, I think certainly for the leaders team leaders who are listening, they're going to have a somewhat of a blueprint and some better understanding of where a starting point is with the team, and then where do they really want to develop the team to get to. And I think for the people on the team, it'll give them a sense of what to expect or how they can show up in order to be an effective team member. So that's kind of what I'm thinking that hopefully they'll walk away with after the end of today.
That's awesome. Great. Yeah, I'm all yours.
All right. So, Henry,
Yes.
let's tap into your experience, shall we?
Oh boy. All
right. You're taking over a new team. This
Okay.
team has actually have you ever formed a new team? Let's work with that one.
Dozens of times.
Okay, perfect. So, how do you approach that when you're forming a new team? Here comes Henry. Hello, team.
Well, I think the way that I approached it most recently is the first hire team member joining is the most important in my view, because they help set the culture, set the stage, set the pace, they set the stage for every subsequent hire, in my opinion. So I always spend a lot more time on that first team member than I would for subsequent team members.
Okay. And what's the point of doing that?
Well, I want to make sure that I have a particular, healthy team culture, and the expectations are, a certain way. I want to make sure that I'm productive, so that way I can show management that, we're producing, so that way, we are producing value, stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So, but I'm lost a little bit. I got to be honest with you. All right.
Okay.
You say you work with one person, which you have a team of people.
No. When I'm building a team, so my first hire, I will spend the most time on interviewing and trying to find that right person, because I want to make sure that they represent the culture that I'm trying to build of the team, and because then they really set the stage, how they work, how they operate, so I spend a lot of time there.
Okay. Well, certainly somebody that is going to help you, I guess, build this team or something. Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah. So they're not going to be like junior. They're going to be like more established. They're going to need, they're going to be on the same page.
Okay. Now let's say you hired the team. You got all the team members there.
Okay, great. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so we'll start there and we'll say, all right, here comes Henry.
Hmm.
First meeting with the team. What are you looking to do?
Um, well, I mean, the
It's not a
first team
trick
meeting.
question,
So I've
Henry.
hired everyone and they just showed up on Monday. Like, do we already know each other?
Yeah, we're having our first team meeting.
But we all know each other, right? We didn't like they know who they are.
Maybe, maybe not.
Okay, all right. So I'll go to like absolute day one. So day one, I hired everyone. The team shows up. We're gonna do meet and greet and introductions, and
Okay,
so that way everyone knows who they are. I'll probably
okay,
discuss expectations, team norms, team dynamics, like how we expect to work,
right.
and spend all my time on that. I won't just go in there and be like, oh, okay, like here's your project, go get started. I'll probably spend a lot of time. How do
All
you
right.
like to work? What are some fun quirks that you have that you can share with the group or something like that? Just try to like
Okay,
get everyone to know each other and get ready to work.
okay. So if I'm hearing you, you're giving a lot of information to the team on uh, the first meeting.
Sure.
You
Well,
don't sound
I mean,
convinced.
what we're gonna have
Well, you
discussions,
said you said I'm going to establish some norms.
Hmm.
I'm going to talk about what the team's going to do, or what the objective of the team is. Maybe.
Yeah, perhaps the objective, the mission,
Okay.
a vision for the
Okay.
team.
Right.
It's going to be somewhat. It's mostly collaborative because like they need to kind of know how to work with each other to be effective.
Yeah. Okay. But first, they need some information, don't they?
Sure. Well, yeah.
Don't they need
what
information
what information?
about, information like maybe what our objective is, or our overall objective of this team is, how maybe how often you might meet, what your expectations are as the head of the team. Is that something that you may be sharing?
Yeah, sure. I would. I was thinking more of the second meeting, but we could do this on the first meeting. Sure.
Okay, well, let's say the first couple meetings. All
Okay.
right. I
Yeah.
mean, but in those cases, you're being pretty directive. You're giving them information. Is that correct?
Yes. Giving
Okay.
information and them sharing information. Yes.
Okay. What's their mindset coming in, team members? So it's a new team, new boss,
Yeah.
new objective. Generally, what is the mindset of the team member from your point of view?
Well, the team member wants to make sure they're doing a good job. They
Okay.
are probably like, who is this person? And, are they going to be good to me? I would think
Okay.
that they would have made a decision if they had previously met that, like, hey, this is going to be a fun team. And they're looking forward to
Okay.
working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how would you rate their motivation right then and there at the
Probably
beginning?
off the chart. Probably off the charts.
Yeah, high, right?
Hmm.
So the first part coming into as a leader into a team really is to orient the team, isn't it? Give them
Yes.
some structure, right? You don't really need to give them much support. They're motivated. Let's go. Let's do this. We're going to be great, right?
Hmm.
But they go like going, okay, Henry, how are we working? What's this about? Where are we going? What's your vision? What do you expect from us, right?
Hmm.
All structure. So that's phase one.
Okay.
Okay, you want to go in there. You want to orient the team towards towards the results that you're looking for. It's not, you know, it's not getting into the detail of how they're working together yet, but really more about, okay, um, what we let's align for the results that we're looking to achieve.
Yes. Yeah. Makes sense.
Does that sound make sense with you?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I agree with it.
All right. So that's phase one. How comfortable are you at doing that as a leader?
Me personally, yeah, it's piece
Yeah.
cake. I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're highly directive in general.
That's
Although
true.
you've gotten a lot better since you worked with me, Henry.
Yeah, very much so.
And 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 so you come in and you're giving information. You
Hmm.
don't really need to give a lot of support, pep talks.
Hmm.
You could appreciate them certainly, but for being there and being part of this team. But really, it's about orienting to the team, giving them structure, aligning for results. Highly directive, low supportive. Okay.
Hmm.
Then you start working. The team starts working together.
Hmm.
What has been your experience when the team starts working together and they have all these different ideas of how they're going to work together, who's going to do what ideas are going to be chosen? What happens with the team in that phase? Because that's the next phase, right?
Hmm. Yeah. So it could get, well, it depends. I mean, I kind of expect, so, so when I go into building a team, at least me personally, and you
Uh
can
huh.
correct me and redirect me here if you want, Jonathan. But like when I'm building teams, I recognize that there's going to be obviously everyone's very very motivated. They want to work together. They want to do the best work.
Yep.
They're going to all want to work on the best parts of the project. They're going to want to
Yep.
work on the most fun stuff. Some people are going to be much more forthcoming and directive, like very
Mm-hmm.
assertive, and others are just going to be like, okay, I'll just do this. So it's like, you know, uh, knowing that, I kind of take steps to kind of make sure that the team understands that it's an iterative process, that it's not going to be perfect, and that we like continually look to improve the team dynamics over time because, some people have different goals and different alignments along the way. And so
Right.
I'll recognize that. But
Right.
in the past, when I was new at this, what would happen is it gets chaotic because, you know, the emotions start flying. People are like, this person did this and did that, and I don't get it. And they're, it's where like it gets all out of hand because everyone's overly excited. This person's not working as hard as me, or this, and all kinds
Right.
of crazy stuff.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying, it creates some conflict at
Oh
that
yeah, big
point.
time. Yeah, big
Okay.
time. Hmm.
Right. And maybe even some dissatisfaction because people aren't getting necessarily what they're looking for. And it starts this wonderful team who are all excited to be on it. They're now like, these are individuals vying for position, for power, for what they're going to work on, and it's more of a me attitude rather than a team attitude. All right.
Yeah.
So through this conflict, they're having problems communicating.
Hmm.
All right. And that's the challenge. And we mentioned it before. We're going to have somebody on, the author of that,
Great
conversational
weather.
capacity.
Yeah, great
And that's
weather.
what
Hmm.
this is about. Okay. It really is about resolving conflict. That becomes the leader's job. All
Hmm.
right. So, how does the leader resolve conflict? Well, still being directive, still aligning for orientation, and keeping, making sure that everybody's got their focus on what the objectives are. Okay. But now more support comes in. All right. Because they're getting anxious, they're in
Yeah.
conflict. Okay. So, it's really helping them to communicate through that conflict. All right. Because what happens to the morale at this point?
Yeah, it starts to kind of drop. People start
Yeah.
to feel like, oh, what was I doing? Things like that. What did I get myself into?
Yeah. What have I thought? What am I thinking going coming to
And
work for this team,
do
right?
you think it also kind of messes with trust a little bit too? Because that's really important for a team to function.
Well, you're building trust, right?
But then if
At
you're
that
having
point.
conflict, you're going to start
But
breaking
so
it down.
you're trying to,
Yeah.
you as the leader is working on making sure that, people are being spoken to
Yes.
respectively,
Yeah.
right? And that, that they're being listened, they're heard. In some cases, you may be a little bit of a referee, but they're looking for your leadership at this, here, and your guidance, and they're willing to listen. They're willing to be because it's still new, right? They
Right.
haven't created total biases yet. So, when just kind of looking at it from a productive side, um, in the first phase, when you give orientation, they haven't produced anything. So there's really no productivity, right?
Hmm.
Now you're in the second page, there's a little bit of productivity starting to happen, but it hasn't gone very far, and now they're in conflict.
Hmm.
Okay. So again, your job now as a leader is to resolve, help them to resolve, not resolve it for them, but help them to resolve how they're going to communicate with each other. Like in
Right.
conversational capacity, we talk about stating your position directly, succinctly, right? Give the why and back of what you're thinking, and then be open to being wrong and to listen to other people's points of view. And then it's a back and forth kind of communicating style to find the best possible outcome or the sweet spot, as it's talked
So
about.
you mentioned that the manager should not resolve for the team; that they should help them and give the team skills to do that. Why is that the case, Jonathan?
Because they're going to keep coming to you to resolve differences. All right. What's that going to do to your productivity? What's it for the leader's productivity? And what's it going to do for their ability to become a self reliant team if they keep coming to you? What happens?
Yeah, that you're the bottleneck, and then they can't think for themselves. Of course. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. And as we get through the last stage of the team development, you'll see why this is so important. All right.
Hmm.
So they get this dissatisfaction, they have conflict, you're helping them to resolve, they're working it out, okay? And then they move into the third stage, which is where they're integrating with each other. They're working with each other. They're starting to figure it out. They're coming up with some systems, processes to do things. They're getting clarification of roles now, right? And they're really starting
Hmm.
to gel. All right. What do you think's happening to their productivity at this point?
It's starting to go
Where
up. Yeah.
it's starting to go up. Where it
Yep.
went up a little bit after the orientation, but this is where you get the
Hmm.
largest growth. They're really becoming more cohesive at this
Hmm.
point. All right. So you as a leader, what do you think your role is at this point?
For the integration phase.
Yeah.
Well,
Now that
yeah,
there's
you're
exactly.
you become more supportive as you go through this, because
Uh huh.
like I guess the end result here of what you want to do is have a like a self-functioning team in essence, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so you want to start backing off at this point, where it's like, okay, you have the reins, so
Yep.
here's the expectation, and then you can go and resolve these stuff. You want to create a very, I see that as a very healthy culture.
Right. So in the phase one, it was highly directive. You didn't have to give them a lot of support because they were
Hmm.
motivated. Right. In phase
Hmm.
two, you were increasing your support, right? But still being directive to help
Hmm.
them move through the conflict and communicate effectively with each other.
Hmm.
Now you're into phase three, which is the integration.
Hmm.
And here they're starting to gel. You don't want to keep being the bottleneck, as you mentioned, right? So you're backing down on your directive behavior. You're allowing
Hmm.
them to be the team, but you're still being supportive. You're there. They know you're there. You're there to help. You're there to encourage. Um, Not to say there's no direction. You may still need to help in that way, but you want to start backing down because of the fact of going into this fourth phase, which is really where they have a much higher productivity. They're working together as a team, right? And they're performing at a high level. So you want to get in their way? Do you want to get in their way? No.
No, not at all.
All
No,
right. Do they need you as much at that phase?
no, no. I don't know
Right.
if that's a good or bad thing though.
It's a good thing. Okay. It's a good thing because they're a highly functioning team and they can function on their own, but you're still there to validate. And there still will be times you'll need to step in for direction. And think of it this way: in a lot of these teams, they're dependent on other teams, and changes, shifts in focus on deliverables, and so it's a little bit of a dynamic situation, and that's where the leader is inherent. Okay,
Hmm.
but if you have a highly functioning team, let's say you go on vacation for 2 weeks, or now they have sabbaticals for leaders, right? And they could be gone for 2 or 3 months. Ideally, if you have a high functioning team, what happens?
They just keep doing their thing.
They keep doing their thing.
Yeah.
There may be some leader, so, that somebody may take on a little bit more of a leadership role in that, somebody strong in the team, but it's kind of organic. It's not like, hey, I'm going to leave you in charge. It's more like the team works it out,
Hmm.
you know? So, and imagine, and what's it do for you when you have a team that can do something like that, Henry?
That's great, and then you can go and do it again.
Right. And it allows you as a leader not just to, validate the team and keep them
Yeah.
focused on the objective, but it also allows you to open up and expand what you're able to do as well.
Yeah. This is interesting because this is where we start getting into the whole aspect of where managers start to get tripped up. Like I said, well, what do I do, right, when this happens? I'm like managing myself out of a job, or micromanagers can't get past a certain stage because they feel that they have to be involved, right? And or you have managers that they leave on vacation and they're checking in all the time. It's not really micromanaging anymore. It's a trust factor, all that kind of stuff. So I think this is being able to trust your team and let go is very, very hard skill. I think I've been uh, um, caught doing this myself, where I just feel like I'll try to relax and I'll say, I just, if you want it done right, do it yourself. That's what I used to say, because I wasn't preparing my team to actually be able to handle things. It's like,
Okay.
I thought it was my team's gaps, but it was my gaps not being able to communicate to the team at the
Ah,
end.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's something as a leader you should always be. I encourage my clients to always consider what's your own biases. How are you showing up?
Yeah.
Okay. Team is not this a highly functioning team is not a situation where you're being a dictator or autocratic type of leader.
Hmm.
Okay, the team is the functioning unit. Okay, you're there. You're still a team member. I mean, some people still work, actually do tactical work, not if you're a director, you still may be doing, or a senior manager, you still may be doing some tactical work. When you get into the vice president or the senior leader, executive hierarchy in a corporation, maybe you're not doing any of the tactical anymore, but you're still leading the team. You're still there to support, to validate, to encourage when new things come in. You're still there to help them work through the conflict. So
Hmm.
this is not like you go from stage to stage to stage. This could be a bit of a dynamic situation. And you, as a leader, really still need, there's still a job, but not to micromanage it. Okay,
Hmm.
to support the team to keep at that high level functioning level as much as possible.
Yeah, that's right. It's this also applies to like entrepreneurship as well. So I've been reading a lot about franchises and scaling
Uh
franchises. I
huh.
don't know. I have an interest in them. And what have been learning is like this skill of being able to spin up a store, have it run independently, have the people know exactly what's expected, so you can then move on to another location, because you're not going to become. I mean, you can have a great career owning like one
Uh huh.
franchise, but if you want to scale and be successful, you have to learn how to pull away and have these systems in place, right? And so,
Yep.
it's not just being a manager of a team and trying to produce an output. Like it's also the business that you have. That whole unit is a team that you need to be able to kind of build up as well. I think the franchise model is a good example, because you have to repeat it in different locations, right?
Yep. And
Yeah.
part of the franchisor, because I was looking at a franchise at one point, and part of that is to train people on how to lead a team.
Yes. Yeah.
Because a lot of these people are going to a franchise, they've
Yeah.
had no experience. That's what you're paying for in the franchise. You're paying for the training, and obviously, in some cases, you're paying for the economies of scale
Yeah.
on being part of a franchise. But um, yeah, so let's now tap into your personal experiences based on what I've shared with you.
Okay.
Why don't you tell the folks out who's listening, kind of run us through your experience. If you have a real world experience that you could share,
Hmm.
that would probably be more valuable to the folks out there, and just how you kind of work through these things and where it was working, where it wasn't, and what you
Hmm.
learned from that experience.
Okay, sure. I always like talking about where, my past experiences that shaped my current one. So, you talk about conflict and resolving conflict. So, I
Mm-hmm.
was once part of a growing team many years ago, and we got in the conflict phase, and I personally didn't know how to confront the other teammates on these things. So, I would use the one-on-ones with the manager to complain about the situation. So there was the conflict, and I would say, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is what's going on." And instead of them saying, "Here's how you can handle it. This is what you should do," they would go and say, "I got it. Don't worry." And then the next week we would come back, and I would say, "Hey, is this resolved?" Well, I got it. I can't really share this with you. And so I never really knew if they addressed it or not, or if it was resolved. Like it just, and that always was like, it made no sense. And later on, I realized when I was like a manager myself, I'm like, that's the one thing that I need to do is like when someone comes to me with a conflict, it's not like I just do it. Like what you mentioned earlier, it's like, I should actually like teach you, okay, well, you go to this person, you have this discussion. If you're uncomfortable, like I can be there and support you through it. But it's like, you need to learn how to work through this conflict yourself because I'm not always going to be there. So that's always stuck out, and I found that really important because that was what I just thought was the hierarchy at the business. You have a problem, you go to the
Mm-hmm.
manager or the boss, right? But I soon learned that it's more important to be open with your own team and go to the boss if it's the last resort, essentially. If I need help, so that's one thing. I mean, other experiences I've had is like, well, one funny thing is that as I was building one of my startup teams within Google, we were going so fast that I actually had to hire someone to slow us down. So one of my like early hire, so I had hired people that were, like you said, like very energetic, very highly productive, very, very good at what they did so we can achieve our goals. But then what started to happen is our things would crack because we were going so fast and we were just so like scrappy that there was not enough infrastructure to kind of like keep the quality there. So we
Mm-hmm.
had little issues and things like that. So I actually found someone that was like methodical and really paid attention to quality more. Like it was a complete different personality type than what we had. And I brought him into the team. And it was a great fit, but it forced us to slow down. And then our quality improved and we brought it on there. So I always, I learned from that experience was like pay attention to the dynamics because it may not be that you have to have a chat with the team. Like it may not be like, hey guys, like we got to do this. It's like maybe you just need a different voice in that group because everyone was so
Mm-hmm.
similar. Everyone's like, let's go fast, fast, fast. And the other one's like, hey, slow down. We got to think of this, and do that. So
So that's
that was another
interesting. So
experience.
when forming the team,
Hmm.
look at the strengths of the team members, and all the same strengths may not give you the highest productivity. Is
That's right.
that
Yeah. You
right?
need diverse
Okay.
opinion. I mean, it's
All
like
right.
in all different aspects. Like, not everybody can always solve, like, you don't want the clones of the same people. I learned that very early
Mm-hmm.
on. That's just sets you up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
So, in one of my, teams of that, do you want me to share some other? I can go on all day. How much time do we have today?
Yeah,
Uh,
we don't have that much time, Henry. Don't worry.
okay.
I'm curious. There was something you said about conflict where you're encouraging people to resolve their own conflict.
Hmm.
Um, what happens if they don't know how to do that? What's your role as a leader?
Well, I'll ask them like, hey, how would you resolve this if you were doing it yourself?
Yeah.
Most of the time they'll say, I'm not comfortable with this. So, okay, great. Let's talk through it. Let's find
Right.
what are you uncomfortable about? And sometimes they'll say,
Mhm.
well, that person's very intimidating, or they'll say, I don't know how they'll react, or, will they yell at me, or like all kinds of interesting things that'll go on.
Mhm.
I've heard everything. And so we'll
Mhm.
just talk about it and be like, okay, well, what's the worst that'll happen? They'll be like, I don't know. Will they yell at me? Okay, well, what's the best that happens? Well, we resolve our conflict, and I learn something new about that person. So,
Yeah. So that's the coaching part. You got to put
yeah.
on your coaching hat. Now, if you're in a group of people and there's conflict,
hmm
all right, and how would you approach that?
So if it's a conflict that's like general across the team, I'll usually
Hmm.
make myself the example. So not love to, but like I'll apologize or I'll bring up
Okay.
I'll make myself the example. So let's say there's a
So
lot of tension in meetings. Instead of just going saying there's a lot of tension, everyone needs to treat each other with respect. I feel like that's just like saying, hey, don't act like that. Instead, I'll say, hey, you know what? The meeting was really tense the last time. I felt very uncomfortable, and I want to apologize if I raised my voice and got it. And then it starts that discussion where everyone will be like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of
yeah.
sense. Because I don't like just telling people. I like trying to. I mean, I've broken every rule in management and leadership already, so I can usually bring up a story or something of where I
Yeah.
messed up. So
Yeah. So being as a leader, you could be vulnerable, right?
mhm.
Transparent, all great qualities as a leader, but being a model in actions and attitudes, I would say, certainly is beneficial to anyone, but to the team. So, you ever had a boss that's hypocritical? Don't do as I do, do as I say.
Yeah, all
It's
the time.
like, yeah, what happens to your motivation when you see that?
Goes in a
You
toilet.
know,
Yeah.
it's terrible, right? I will also say though, if the team is, um, let's say, certain amount of immaturity, they don't have the experience to understand how to work through conflict, communicate through conflict. That's where you can introduce like the conversational capacity model and say, how about we use this as the parameter on how we're going to communicate, you
Hmm.
know? So then your role as a leader maybe to kind of like point out if people aren't doing that and what the impact is, right? You can coach a team as well, like you could say, let's say Henry is a team member and Henry, is kind of barking at Jonathan, well, you as a leader can go, Jonathan, the way Henry just spoke to you, how are you feeling about that?
Hmm.
And they might go, oh, well, I don't like it. Well, what is it that's making you not like that? And you're saying in front of the group because for the group to learn. And goes, well, I just feel like I'm not listened to and I'm being barked at. And it's just, it's kind of putting me on the defensive. And I go, oh, well, Jonathan, how would you like it to be? And then Jonathan can go, well, I just would like to be listened to and kind of like work through this.
Do you prep that person when you bring that up ahead of time if you're calling someone out in a group?
Again, when you are creating the structure,
Uh-huh.
okay, at the beginning in phase one,
hmm
that's when you get alignment with the team on the expectations.
Ah, I see. That makes sense.
Okay. And part of it is also what they can expect from you as the leader, not just what you expect from them as a team member.
I see. I see. So, question on this process: do you recommend kind of doing these like workshop formats with the team early on like a regular basis to make to help them through all these things, or do you kind of after that first couple meetings, like do you basically what I'm getting at? Do you make it apparent that these are the phases that you're going to go through and educate them and run some of these workshops along the way, or do you kind of just have these sessions as they come about?
Everybody, I think that's an individual choice on how you want to develop the
Mhm.
team, because of the team maturity. Um, so I think that you have to take that into account.
Okay. Do
Okay.
you have any recommendations for folks listening on adding team members to an existing group in this same way? Like, do you see the same phases happen when you add
Well,
someone?
yeah. See, when you have a new team member, the dynamics of the team has changed, and now may go back to the first phase where you have to bring the team in and orient the new team member coming in to the team, and the team has to
Hmm.
orient to that as well.
Hmm. Gotcha. Have you ever heard of the concept forming, storming, norming, performing?
Exactly.
It's like
Yes. And
based off
that
of that,
is
right?
that's the same thing we just went through,
Mhm.
just in a different way.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So why don't you just tell them a little bit of what that means, Henry?
So the forming, storming, norming, performing is like forming is like when the group comes together. Storming is kind of like when you're jockeying for position and stuff like that.
The
Norming
conflict.
it, yeah, the conflict, they align, I guess, equally now that I
Yeah.
think of it. The norming is kind of like where everyone starts to work together and they get it, everyone's
Yeah.
acceptance, they've
That's
accepted
the
it. And
integrating,
yeah, and then the
right?
performing is like them. What was the last one? You said
That's
the
production,
production,
high
right? Yeah,
production. Yeah.
yeah. Interesting.
That's it. You
Yeah,
got it.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
So that's what we want to cover in the teams today. Um, Anybody have any questions or wants to hear more about it? Please feel free to reach out to us, and I will certainly, or Henry will get back to you on this. So Henry, what did you get out of today?
I am reminded that every team goes through this. That it's normal, and it's a leader's job, like the leader's primary job, whether or not you feel that you're kind of managing yourself out of a job to help a team get to this kind of like uh, performant position and stage. It's important for them to be able to learn and do well, and then people leave teams, and so when they leave and go to another team, hopefully that they will bring the seeds of kind of these kinds of frameworks to then help their other
Yep,
teams grow and succeed. So I think it's a very,
exactly.
very good thing to do.
Great, great. Thanks
Yeah,
for sharing.
yeah,
Well, I'll
awesome.
let you wrap us up here,
Yeah,
Henry.
absolutely. So thanks again for listening to the Leadership Lab. And again, if you've gotten this far, we appreciate it. Please hit the like and subscribe button so you can continue to encourage us to continue making episodes that will land every Friday morning. So yeah, I am Henry Kirk,
And I am Jonathan Aronson.
and you've been listening to the Leadership Lab. Thanks very much.